Hi, welcome to BCTV and part 3 of our interview with top instigator Ben Yoskovitz and co-founder of Standoutjobs.com. Today we're going to find out what Ben thinks takes to succeed and what peeves him. So Ben, what kind of projects and startups do you think succeed, and what do you think it takes to propel them towards success?
Well, I think any business can succeed, whether the idea is really big and lofty or whether the idea is really small. I mean, you see a lot of Web 2.0 startups that are what many of people now consider commodities. There are clones of similar systems done a little bit differently. You can still succeed, and it takes, like anything else. In the startup world, it's no different than anything else in the sense that hard work, a good team, and continually pushing yourself is what it takes to succeed. Money helps. Funding is a part of it. Not with all startups, but with a lot of startups, can make a big difference too.
And you worked with quite a few companies. I know you've advised many startups. Now, what do you think is the best thing that you've ever done to help them fulfill their goals? What was your input?
My input, with different startups, it varies.
Sure.
Lately, a lot of my input has actually been on the funding side of things, which is interesting. It's not an area that I have tons and tons of experience with, but you only sort of have to go through the process of raising money once or twice before you learn a whole lot about what it takes to raise money and the challenges of that. So a lot of people have come to me asking for help with that, especially in Montreal, where it's not like Silicon Valley, where there's lots of companies, lots of money, lots of people who have been there, done that. And then the other stuff that I like to help with is very much on the marketing side of things. How do you get the word out there? How do you promote the business and the company?
And what's been your biggest obsession working with startups?
In Montreal, my biggest obsession has been to get more startup founders communicating with one another. So when you look at what makes cities like Silicon Valley or Boston successful, and there's a whole lot of reasons, but all of those people are out there helping one another. There's a community of startups. And Montreal is starting to see more and more of that. And lately, that's been one of my biggest focuses, is getting people to come out, participate, share their ideas. So I get emails from people saying, hey, I've started a company, or I've been running a company for a couple of years, and I don't know why we haven't heard about it, I don't know why you haven't heard about it, and it's like, you have to get out there. But that's not obvious or natural for a lot of people.
So then, what makes you want to tear your hair out when you work with startups?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the lack of participation within the community where they live. So, in my mind, successful entrepreneurs who have already been successful or are, have been there, done that, should be giving back, even at the university level. So, I'd love to see more university students want to be entrepreneurs, whether it's after they come out of university or whether it's even while they're at school. And then I think, Me Too companies, which are companies that are basically just doing the same thing as somebody else, it's just not particularly interesting. Those companies can be successful. They can sell out to other companies or what have you, but I'd rather see you try something a little bit different, a little bit off the wall, and give a go of that versus doing something a little bit more safe.
And in your opinion, who are the best-in-class startups out there? Are there any you admire that uses models of excellence?
I mean, there's lots of startups that I follow. In Silicon Valley, there's plenty. One of the companies that I like a lot is a company called Zobni, which is XOBNI, and Standoutjobs did a video with them, and they're just cool on a number of levels. Cool technology, it's one of those, why didn't I think of that sort of things? But there's a lot behind the scenes going on, and probably one of the best companies at generating buzz that I've ever seen, which, you know, if you don't have a business to back it up with, is just, you know, vaporware. But if you have a business to back it up with, it's interesting. And then locally, I think we're seeing more and more companies that are starting to step up and make some noise. Praised is one. And I like those guys a lot, Sylvain Carl and Sebastien Provencher. I haven't seen what they're doing, but I like those guys, and they're what I would consider successful entrepreneurs.
When you look at some of the startups and you've seen them go through some ups and downs, what are some of the major pitfalls that they go through, and how can they avoid them?
Well, I think funding is probably one of the biggest pitfalls. Underestimating how much money you need, or not planning enough on the financial side. And that's something that when you're a first-time entrepreneur, you probably have almost zero experience with. You know, what does a financial model look like? You know, most people have no idea. You know, how much time should you invest in figuring those things out? So I think that's a fairly common pitfall. I think underestimating the amount of time it takes to do anything. You know, we can, you know, two guys will sit in our garage and we'll code this and we'll be done in a week. You're never done in a week. You can double any of your estimates and maybe you'll be accurate at that point. And then I think for technology startups, probably one of the biggest pitfalls is the, you know, build it and they will come mentality, which is, you know, we're going to build something, we're going to put it online, and we're going to get, you know, 100,000 beta users like that. And most Web 2.0 startups forget about sort of traditional sales and marketing.
From what I've gotten to know about you, you seem to surround yourself with a circle of very proactive, do-or-die, excellent entrepreneurs. What kind of people inspire you, if you want to name them? Who inspires you, and why do they?
Well, I mean, Austin Hill, I think is a great entrepreneur. I mean, he's a partner in the Standoutjobs, but he's got much more experience than I do, and you know, has served in many ways as advisor, mentor to myself and to my partner Fred. So I think there's a lot to admire there as somebody who's stayed in Montreal, has, you know, gotten up on the soapbox and, you know, for lack of a better term, ranted and raved about you can be successful outside of Silicon Valley, and this is how you do it, and to think differently. So I think he's one of those guys that I would, you know, anybody should sort of follow what he's doing and pay attention. Who else? I'm trying to think of local people that are interesting. A company that I didn't mention that I do like quite a bit is B5 Media. I don't know if you've ever spoken to them, but okay, so yeah, I mean, they run a blog network, which sounds fairly basic, but it's a huge undertaking. They're Canadian, based in Toronto. I like those guys a lot. Jeremy Wright is the CEO there. And I think he's another sort of Canadian entrepreneur that you could follow and say, this guy, you know, he knows what he's doing, he's outspoken, and I think that's important, you know, as for Canadian entrepreneurs. And then the other one that comes to mind for me is Patrick Lohr, who was instrumental in iStock Photo, based out of Calgary. And again, another guy who's outspoken, very, very creative, doing a lot to help Canadian entrepreneurs, and I'm all for that.
Well, thanks, Ben. It's been really interesting. I really appreciate that you shared all your rich experiences and wisdom with us, and wish you a lot of luck with all your ventures, and thanks for helping out all the startups too.
Thank you.
And thank you for visiting VCTV in our 3-part interview series with Ben Yoskovitz, top instigator and co-founder of Standoutjobs.com. You can visit both sites at www.instigatorblog.com and www.standoutjobs.com. Thanks again, and see you real soon.